Good evening, everyone, and thank you kindly for joining us for the third annual F*** You Starfield, You Are Shit convention. Settle down now, settle down. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, and those who have wandered in here by accident looking for the toilets, we have an absolute bursting agenda this evening, so I'll rattle through this as quickly as possible. Firstly, thank you to SQUARESPACE for sponsoring tonight's convention. At 7 p.m. sharp, we begin with a brief but spirited lecture entitled Starfield's Loading Screens and Exercise in Patience, followed at 8 p.m. by Barren Planets and Failed Promises presented by Jeff. A small amendment to the schedule, coffee and tea will now be served after the Todd Howard pinata bashing, which due to last year's widespread tuckering out, has been moved to 9 p.m. precisely. But first, before all that mayhem, we have a very special guest, a first-timer to the convention, who has volunteered to illuminate the tragic, misguided, utterly bewitched design of this silly, stupid piece of shit video game. Please extend a warm welcome to, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Mr. Bandercoot. Yes, hello. Good evening. So listen, I know why you're all here. You hate Starfield. You hate the loading screens. You hate the copy and pasted dungeons. And you hate the shallow combat. Great. Excellent. We are astonishingly on the same page. Because I'm not here tonight to tell you that Starfield is perfect, or even finished. What I'm here to talk about, and please don't freak out.
You got 5 minutes, Ben!
Thank you, my name isn't Ben. What I want to talk to you about are the things that you weren't meant to notice in the game. Because buried underneath the loading screens, and underneath the outposts, and underneath the thousands of planets you scanned once and never returned to, there are tiny, unnecessary, but genuinely cool details in this game. Details that do nothing for combat, nothing for progression, details that exist for one reason only. Somebody cared. Why are you guys eating chunks? Look. Before you throw the rest of your dinners at me, just let me show you a couple of these things. Not to convince you that Starfield was a masterpiece or that you were wrong to dislike it, just to prove that despite some of its flaws, Starfield is doing some things actually impressive. And those things lie in the tiny details. Hello from Cydonia, a mining settlement located on Mars in the Sol system. And this place is one of the most important industrial hubs in the settled system, exporting massive amounts of metals to build ships. Yeah, ships. We'll complain about those later, but we're not talking about ship metal today. We're talking about this sign right here. 84 hours without incident. It's right here when you walk in, and chances are you noticed it the first time you visited Cydonia. But what you might not have noticed is that this counter actually ticks up every single in-game hour. But what's even cooler is if we give that woman leaning over there a little zap, the counter immediately resets to 0.
That's a bug!
It's not. And that's kind of the point. And it's cool for a few reasons. First, this single sign tells you more about Cydonia than any line of expository dialogue ever could. Just by looking at it, you understand how dangerous this mine is. Second, it implies routine. The fact that this number exists at all tells you accidents are expected, normalized, part of daily life. But the most interesting part is this counter can reach hundreds of hours without incident. But then you arrive. As the player, you have the power to walk into a working colony and instantly disrupt its rhythm. One stray shot, one careless action. And it's through a tiny detail like this, the game reminds you who you are in this world. Not a spectator, not a tourist, but a presence capable of disrupting an entire system. So today I want to show you a few more of these systems you may have walked right past while playing the game. Some of them are funny, some of them are strange, and one of them perfectly captures what Bethesda was trying to do when they made Starfield. So with that, let's head a little deeper into Cydonia to its community center. Here's one you probably didn't see. At first glance, this just looks like a small rec room. There's a workout area, a soccer net, a dartboard, a ping pong table. Normal stuff, nothing flashy. But then there's this, a weekly schedule. And the wild part is all of these things actually happen. The times are a little wonky, but if you're willing to stand around for a few hours, these events unfold in real time. There's a minor support group on Tuesdays with different variations on what they talk about during the meetings. Movie night is listed as TBD, though as you can see, Janice here is clearly ready for movie night. There's a book club on Thursdays and Sanctum Universum services on Saturdays and Sundays. None of this is a quest, none of it's marked, no one tells you to be here, it just happens. And in doing that, it paints a really specific picture. Because if you've ever been to a mining town or an oil camp, this is exactly what they look like. They have these small, slightly depressing community spaces where people try to impose routine on a job that doesn't really care about them. A movie night, a support group, things on the calendar to make the days blur together a little less. And this is the kind of thing I love about Starfield. Because once you notice a detail like this, something something ticking away in the background, you start realizing it's not isolated. Cydonia isn't special because it has one clever sign, it's special because it teaches you how to look at the rest of the game. And once you start noticing spaces people just endure, you start seeing them everywhere. So let's take that same mindset somewhere very different. Neon. In Neon, Starfield's pleasure city, you've got sleep crates. These ones here are a part of a quest, so you've probably seen them. They come with bathrooms and you can actually rent them out in the game. But over on the edge of Neon, there's another set, smaller ones, all stacked up. You can't rent them, they're not a part of a quest, so who are these for? Well, in the real world, in high-density urban centers like Tokyo, capsule hotels provide cheap overnight lodging by stacking uniform bedside capsules along a corridor. The design comes from necessity, dense cities where space is limited and minimalism is a requirement. So why do they exist on Neon? As you may know, Neon is the Aurora capital of the settled systems. Aurora is a hallucinogenic drug that comes from fish farmed on Neon, and it's also the only place in the settled systems where it's legal. So maybe these sleep crates are here for the out-of-towners, people who took Aurora and just need a place to crash afterwards. Oh, and the entire city of Neon is powered by this massive conduction grid that appears to convert lightning into energy, store it underneath the city, and then distribute it throughout. That's something I never noticed until making this video and actually taking a closer look. Okay, I see the guy in the front row shaking his head, so let's talk about something we all like. Food. I actually made an entire video about the food economy of Starfield, and somehow while making that video, I never noticed these. Tucked away in various shops and corners throughout the game, you can find these machines. At first glance, they don't look like much, but they might be one of the most fascinating props in Starfield. They're labeled cubic food, and instead of dispensing prepackaged snacks or bottled drinks, this thing looks like a public use food printer. There's an extrusion nozzle, a heated build plate, and these color-coded ingredient capsules, likely proteins, starches, fats, maybe flavor compounds. It's basically a modern 3D printer repurposed to crank out meals. I even found early concept art of this machine, and what's wild is that it was recreated in-game almost exactly, right down to the missing cartridge. Why is it missing? I don't know.
It's probably a bug.
For Christ's sake, dude, can you please chill?
Sorry.
My guess is that it's meant to evoke a society on the brink, where even the food that comes out of the machines looks like they're one missing part away from failing. But here's where it gets really interesting. Chunks, the cubic food in the game, and still my favorite video game food of all time, looks exactly like the kind of thing that would come out of this machine. And yet, the machine doesn't actually do anything. It's just set dressing. Which makes you wonder if at some point in development, these machines were meant to produce chunks, before Bethesda pivoted and turned chunks into a full-blown fast food empire instead. Just a theory. And the tech itself isn't even that far-fetched. This idea mirrors real-world research by NASA, where engineers have been exploring printable, on-demand food for astronauts. Places where supply lines are limited and people survive on reconstituted matter. Back in 2013, NASA funded a project to develop a fully nutritional 3D food printer. The idea was cartridge-based ingredients, powdered proteins, starches, fats, mixed with waters, oils, and micronutrients, all combined through a printhead. One early demo famously printed a small pizza. The printer laid down dough, then sauce, then a protein paste, forming a blocky little personal pizza that was baked afterwards. And it worked. Which makes these machines in Starfield feel less like sci-fi nonsense and more like a future that's already halfway here. Or if you ask the vice president of Campbell's Soup, fully here. And speaking of 3D printed food, listen to the sound a chunk makes when you drop it. That sounds like what a chunk would sound like. Because a pool ball drops like a pool ball, a tin can lid sounds like tin, glass sounds like glass. Someone had to record and program all of those specific sounds. And all of it ties into what I think Bethesda does better than almost any other studio. Clutter. I recently made a video about Cyberpunk 2077's tiny details, and that game is unbelievably detailed. Every surface is intentional. Every screen, every street, every neon sign is doing something. But the difference between Cyberpunk and Starfield isn't how much detail there is. It's how much of it you're actually allowed to touch. In Cyberpunk, I can't pick up the pizza box, I can't grab the napkin, I can't take the fork. The world feels more like a beautifully curated museum exhibit. Incredible to look at, but not something you're meant to interact with at every level. And that's not a criticism, that's a design choice. But in Starfield, you can pick up pretty much everything. And most of the time, there's no practical reason to do it. Sure, things break down into crafting materials, but most of it is just stuff. Stuffed animals, coffee mugs, Newton's cradle, a board game, objects that don't advance a quest or improve your build or meaningfully help you in any way. So why let you take it? Think about it like this. Have you ever been at a friend's house and seen something they own that you really wanted? A lamp, a weird ornament, a jungle green Nintendo 64? In real life, you can't just put that stuff in your backpack, but in Starfield, you can. Because Bethesda's design philosophy includes giving you full agency to do whatever you want to do. After a loading screen, that is. Am I right, guys? But they give you permission to act however you want. And I bet at some point in a Bethesda game, you've taken something for no other reason other than I like that. And that thing is different for everyone. Bethesda literally hires clutter artists, which... dream job. They fill a room with stuff. This stuff isn't procedurally generated, it isn't random. People go in room by room and place these objects by hand, or mouse or whatever. That's the difference between a room feeling lived in and alive, and a room feeling empty and sterile. Just look around the room you're in right now. Not the furniture, not the things nailed down. Look at the junk. The cup you forgot about, the ruffled blanket, clothes on the floor. Every one of those imperfections is proof of a life being lived. And maybe also proof that you should do a quick tidy. But that mess isn't arbitrary. It tells a story. And Starfield is filled with spaces like this. Rooms where the clutter is environmental storytelling. A great example of this is VLAD'S space station. Because when the artists sit down to design a space like this, they don't just ask, what should this room look like? They ask, who is this person? Vlad, as you can see, is a pretty jacked guy, so they start there. What would his ship have? A weight bench, a workout room, and not just that, an entire fully fleshed out workout routine with specific day splits and notes on each individual exercise. Crazy. And what does this jack scientist eat? Protein, of course. Eggs, protein bars. But being muscular isn't a personality, so they take it a step further. People are made up of their quirks, and our boy Vlad here seems to be obsessed with two things: caffeine and carrots. We've got coffee cups and carrots on the tables, a coffee cup in the garbage, a caffeine poster and a box of carrots hidden under the bed. And then there's my favorite detail of all. A reminder that potato tacos are on Tuesday. And little tableaus like this are all over Starfield. Random ship encounters have some of my favorites. I call this one 4 Dead Friends. You board this random ship and you're greeted with 4 people dead in their beds. Great, all the easier to grab the loot and get out. But if you do a tiny bit of investigation, what do you find? On the computer, there's the story of how the ship took damage in an asteroid field, leaving them stranded out here in the middle of nowhere. On the captain, you find her note about trying to keep everyone calm, to stay alive as long as possible in case help comes. And to distract themselves, they start writing eulogies for each other. And what they write isn't dramatic or poetic, it's jokes, gentle roasting. Stories about spilled drinks, pirate voices, workplace crushes, just real shit. And in this tiny failing ship as the oxygen ran out, they did the most human thing possible. They reminded each other why it mattered that they were here at all. There's traces of their final moments too. Board games, beer, vodka cartons scattered on the floor. And what I love about this one specifically is how uncynical it all is. It's just sweet. You can also stumble upon some truly funny visual storytelling in the game. There's super small stuff like this everywhere, like this broken ice machine on an ice planet completely frozen over with a sign that says they're currently out of ice. These sandwiches are for high clearance personnel only, with probably the nicest food rendering I've ever seen in a video game. But here's my favorite. Another ship full of dead guys, once again no obvious cause, but if you read this note left on the bed, it says, "Hey boss, yeah, I'll be right on it. I'm about done wrapping up this game, just one more turn." And how do we find this man? Dead at his computer. A boom pop drink, a half-eaten sandwich, more drinks, some chunks, a box of sweet rolls sitting on top of a box of games. This man died the way we all want to go. Gaming. Just one more turn. Some of these moments are a little less funny depending on your sense of humor. There's another ship like this, everyone's dead. At first, it's just bodies and a suspiciously high number of fans, so you take a walk around. On the wall, there's a board that just says, "Need water." There's an overturned water cooler, water packs everywhere. Then you check the computer. There's a log about unsafe cabin temperatures caused by an electrical failure. Suddenly it clicks. Nobody froze, nobody got attacked. These people cooked. Again, it's not part of some big quest or dramatic reveal. It's just here waiting for you to put the pieces together. I won't take too much more of your time tonight, but the last one of these little tableaus I want to show you is a recreation of Heaven's Gate Cult. But before we do that, are you okay if we do a little ad read first? Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform designed to help you stand out and succeed online. Whether you're launching a passion project, building a business, or quietly maintaining a website cataloging every chunk in Starfield, Squarespace gives you everything you need in one place. And I mean everything. I use Squarespace for my own work because it lets me actually focus on the thing I care about, talking to you people instead of fighting with a website that looks like it was last updated during the great GeoCities boom of 1999. Their design tools are genuinely excellent. You can start with professionally designed templates, or use their newer tools to customize things exactly how you want without needing to know how to code or accidentally deleting your entire homepage at 2 a.m. They also make it wildly easy to claim a domain. One fair price, no hidden nonsense. Which is great because nothing kills motivation faster than deciding to make a website and then discovering the URL you want costs more than your rent. And if you want people to actually find what you're making, Squarespace has built-in SEO tools that handle the boring technical stuff for you. If you want to check it out, go to squarespace.com/Bandercoot for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use offer code Bandercoot to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Okay, that was the ad. This really has been something. Okay, let's continue on to Cult Juice. Floating out in space is another random ship encounter. Once again, you board a ship where everyone is dead, but this time the details immediately stand out. Orange juice containers, matching outfits, matching shoes, and every single person has two things on them, a note and a key. Each key opens a corresponding safe in the back of the ship, so what is going on? From the notes, it becomes clear that this was a cult called the Children of CLEMENS. They believe the passing of the CLEMENS comet was a once-in-a-lifetime chance to awaken, to shed their physical bodies and merge their souls with the comet itself. They were led by a figure known as the Star Child, this dead guy right here. And what's interesting is how they justify it. They frame the whole thing as spiritual and scientific. They convince themselves that human souls and ionized comet plasma are fundamentally compatible, that this isn't suicide, it's transformation. And that sounds pretty familiar, because it mirrors the real-world Heaven's Gate cult almost beat for beat. Heaven's Gate believed a passing comet, Hale Bopp, was a literal vehicle for transcendence, that shedding the physical body was the final step towards joining something higher. They wore matching clothes, they followed a rigid belief system dressed up as science, and they framed their decision not as death but as graduation. Starfield's version swaps Hale Bopp for the CLEMENS comet, Nike sneakers for these boots and matching uniforms, and phenobarbital for orange juice. But the structure is identical, a charismatic belief, a promise of cosmic escape, and people so desperate for meaning that they convince themselves this is rational, even noble. And this entire story is just here, locked inside a drifting spaceship, floating in the middle of nowhere, for you to discover or not to discover. Earlier I said Starfield reminds you who you are in this world, a presence that can disrupt a system, but the flip side is this: Starfield also rewards you when you choose to be the opposite, when you stop sprinting, when you stop optimizing, when you stop treating the world like a checklist and you just notice. Because these things aren't there to impress you, they're there to be found, like little proof of life signals scattered throughout the settled systems. Do these things make up for everything the game lacks? That's completely up to you. I'm very aware of Starfield's flaws, but I choose to enjoy the game for what it is, not what it isn't. So with that, let's all